Welcome to the Diary of an Apartment Investor podcast. This is another one of your multifamily brief episodes. And today I decided to talk about my week last week. And I had a pretty good week. And I think it's a week that a lot of aspiring apartment investors would absolutely love to have. Why is that? Well, the answer is we closed on two properties last week. Two properties. Okay. Best week ever as far as closings for me, but two properties. And what I'll say is not a whole lot that happened last week actually had to do with what I actually did last week. What happened last week was more of a result of things I did 4 years ago than it was what I did last week. Here's how this shakes out. I had two properties close. One was an 80-unit apartment complex in the Greenville, South Carolina market that we sold. So we closed on the back end, sold after owning for 27 months, which led to a payday for me. My GP percentage gave me roughly $50,000. So that was deposited to my account last week, which was pretty cool. The other one, it was a purchase. We closed on a 61-unit portfolio in Akron, Ohio that once again, both of these happened last week because of things that I had done many, many years ago. Patience is a virtue and consistency is a virtue. And we're going to talk about that. About 5 years ago, summer of 2017 is when I decided that I would become an apartment investor. I had dabbled with single family real estate prior to and was looking to buy more single families using various methods, and eventually caught wind of multifamily. And like you who are listening right now, I became what I call a podcast junkie. Every time I was in the car, I was on my motorcycle, or I was working out, I was listening to a podcast or an audiobook. And my favorite subject to listen about was multifamily real estate. A year later, now we're talking, 2018, I've paid to join a community of aspiring apartment investors, which is much like the Tribe of Titans is today. That was really, I think, the biggest thing that started me out was joining a community of other people who had similar ideas, similar goals. The other thing that really, really helped is I started posting on social media about what I was doing. And sometimes it wasn't necessarily me posting. A lot of times it was me going into forums that talked about real estate and responding to other people's posts. And quite frankly, I didn't post a lot, but what I did is I commented a lot. All right. Now, networking, we'll talk about this group specifically, and the 80 unit in Greenville, South Carolina. I joined this group. Like I said, it was similar to what the Tribe of Titans is now. I think the Tribe's a lot better, by the way. And I started networking with other people. I started talking with other people about what they were looking to do. And I was looking for partnerships. I was looking for other people that I could work with on future apartment deals. And I ended up meeting one of the guys that ended up being the co-founder with me of Four Oaks Capital. And I think if you've been listening to this podcast consistently, you'll realize that I left Four Oaks Capital about 6 months ago. But the long and the short of it is being active in that group 4 years ago led to the partnership that closed on that 80 unit in South Carolina. And it was about 2 years between when I joined that program and when we closed on that property in Greenville, South Carolina. And what I had been doing during that time was taking daily consistent action towards my goals. Okay. Daily consistent action. And that's, I think, one of the keys in doing anything big. Daily consistent action, started with podcasts. And then I realized I need to do more than just listen to podcasts or nothing's ever going to happen. And I joined a group. I started interacting with people in the group. And I also started, like I said, trying to give back on Facebook groups. So let's talk about the second one, the 61 unit portfolio in Akron, Ohio. I met a guy, and looking back at it, I'm not 100% sure where we met. I think it was in a veterans real estate group on Facebook. Okay. Not 100% sure. So don't quote me on that one. But what ended up happening is we set up a phone call. And I remember I was on the DC subway going home from the Pentagon one day and looked at my calendar. I'm like, oh crap, I've got a phone call with this guy that I scheduled. And I remember getting off at just whatever stop I was at. I don't even remember where I was at, somewhere in the middle of DC. I got off the train, went above ground and took the phone call. Okay. Sitting on the steps to, some random building, took that phone call. And that phone call turned into a lunch a couple weeks later, when that particular person was in the DC area. And we ended up setting up phone calls every couple of months. And it wasn't immediately apparent that that would ever lead to anything. But every couple of months, we started getting on the phone and talking. And most of it was him asking questions and just question after question after question. The phone calls started to become more frequent. Instead of every 3 months, they turned into monthly phone calls. And the last thing we would do before hanging up was schedule the next call. How about next month on the 18th at this time? Okay, perfect. Yep, I'll put it on my calendar. Great. What that led to was when we were closing on another deal, a larger property where we needed more capital and we needed just somebody with a little more liquidity to sign on one of our loans, this guy ended up coming in and partnering with us. And that was the first time we had partnered together. And it was about 3 years in the making. Now, about a year and a half after that, this Akron deal, he's the one that found the person who had this deal under contract, brought me into the deal. We put everything together and closed last Friday. So once again, I think the thing that I want you to remember from this is taking daily consistent action is what's going to get you to where you want to go. It might not be immediately apparent that your actions are yielding results. It's like you plant a tree. You plant a fruit tree or whatever. And I've got 2 in my backyard that somebody else planted probably 15 or 20 years ago that are bearing fruit. But when you're looking at what we're doing in the multifamily, if you're an aspiring investor, you're new to the multifamily space, all right, you're planting a tree today that might not bear its first fruit for months or years. Okay. But going back to it, daily consistent action and following up with people is what is going to lead to these successes, which is going to lead to future partnerships, which is going to lead to future deals. And without that daily consistent action, you're never going to get the results you want 2 or 3 or 5 years from now. Something else I'll point out is on the first interaction with my partner at Four Oaks and the guy I partnered with on this Akron deal. Now, there's actually 2 other partners in there, but the one talking specifically about the guy who brought me into the partnership. But the first interaction with either of these 2, I had no idea how far it would lead. And at the time, it was just like, okay, that was a good phone call. Logged it in, checked the box, like, all right, we'll talk again with this guy in a month, talk again with this guy in a week or whatever. And eventually, that led to a lot more stuff. So end of the day, put yourself out there. Okay. Get into groups. Okay. Join our Tribe of Titans. All right. It's a great group with a lot of people that you could potentially partner with, and be active in these groups. Okay. Don't be the wallflower. Don't be the lurker. Be active in this group so other people can see you, and keep on chipping away at that daily consistent action. And eventually, 4 years from now, you're going to have that really good week where you sell a property and buy a property 3 days apart. Anyway, that's it for today. And once again, if you're not a member of our Tribe of Titans, you definitely should. There's always a link to that in the show notes. So definitely come in, join us, and see what it's all about. Thanks. Hey, if you like that episode, make sure to subscribe. But more importantly, if you haven't joined our multifamily educational community yet, which we call the Tribe of Titans, you are missing out. Get 30 days free by clicking the link in the description to this episode, or go to thetribeoftitans.info, and we'll see you there.